let's talk about the Andrew Tate situation, because apparently that's something that needs to be discussed. If you don't know who Andrew Tate is, he started off, got his first fame in kickboxing, and he was actually really good. I think he was like a kickboxing world champion or something along those lines. And then started basically a podcast like everyone else was doing at that time. And got popular because of the topic of this video, the real topic of this video, because it's not Andrew Tate. Whenever I talk about somebody, I always want to make sure it's because I'm using them to discuss another topic that I was going to discuss anyway. That was the same with the Hamza video. The Hamza video was less about Hamza and more about meta skill of expression, which I didn't see anybody talking about. This video, like I said, only partially about Andrew Tate, because it gives me probably the best example possible to talk about polarization. Polarization. If you talk to someone and you walk away from the conversation with, like, just kind of like, okay, that's a person that exists. Just that kind of middling mindset where nothing they said really sets you off one way or the other. They were not polarizing enough. Now, this happens a lot in social media, where someone will specifically get popular because they are able to divide a crowd. Now, Andrew Tate has gotten popular because he is trying to, in a sense, revitalize that old school masculinity of being tough, being good to women, being, like, actively trying to elevate your standards. But we live in a society now where a lot of the things that anybody would say, 20 years ago would be controversial. And he knows that, but that's the message he's putting out. And he knows that is divisive, and he knows that he's going to draw hate from it. He's spoken on that many times. And this recent controversy is kind of just the culmination, the apex of that particular thing. I forgot the entirely fuck what I was talking about, so that's fun. Anyway, Tate's online presence is polarizing. Okay, the recent shit. The reason he's back in this polarizing space, because for a while nobody was talking about him. But the same thing happened to him that happens to just about everybody who is polarizing. Somebody starts taking clips out of context. Recently, Tate has been doing something called affiliate marketing, where basically somebody else has a link to his various products, what have you, and then their content sends them to Tate's site, and they get commission based on how many people buy whatever he's selling, which I think it's like an online course on how to make money, which is just fucking funny. And the problem has come up that the clips that they're taking to post on TikTok, where he doesn't post personally, but all of his affiliate marketers do, some of them are, because they're out of context, pretty damning as far as things you can say on the internet go. And naturally, despite them being out of context, that's resulted in a lot of people being brought into his space already having a negative view of him. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with everything Tate says. There are some things that he says that I'm just like, yeah, all right. Yeah, that's... And to be fair, I feel like part of that is because he plays the character. I don't think he's like every clip that he's said at all times. I think part of it is knowing that he is playing the polarization game. But most of the clips that are taken out of context, the context is extremely fucking important. Because Tate does not hate women. You'd be hard pressed to find a guy that is actually popular on the internet that just straight up hates women. Most of the time it's, here's the things that are specific to women that are not conducive to you living your life in the best way possible. So that you should hold off on dating for an X amount of time, or you should actively try to, stand your ground on this or that. It's always a caveat. It's this is one thing about women that makes being a man, I wouldn't even say challenging, just interesting. Like, almost every person in the self-improvement sphere loves women. Women are fucking great. There was a podcast episode where he was interviewing a male porn star, and he asked him what the best thing about being a porn star was, and the guy said the best thing about being a porn star is also the worst thing, and it's the women. And it's like, yeah, I could see that, because that's like a male fantasy for any teenager, is being able to be a porn star. And so it's just this cavalcade of people who know nothing about Tate's content, who are actively shitting on him because of some out of context clips, and it's not the first time this has ever happened. Anytime you have somebody who says a message that is deeply compelling, it makes you actively think, holy shit, where was this message all my life? There is somebody else on the other side who says, holy shit, where the fuck did this message come from? There's always going to be someone who takes such offense to something that compelling that they just hate it. And that can happen for a few reasons. One, they realize it's the truth and they reject it. That happens a lot. That happened with Dr. Peterson, Jordan Peterson, who I am a personal huge fucking fan of. Clinical psychologist, one of the best speakers on, really just the human existence in general of our generation. And he is actively hated by a lot of people because he says what he thinks. And what he's saying, like, if you listen to it and actually sit there and listen, most of it's not controversial. Like, it's just the kind of thing where somebody is always going to be, if your message is actually compelling, somebody's always going to be upset. And it's a risk you run when you're trying to actively polarize. And polarization is always going to be important. Job interviews, dating, you stick out in people's minds when you actively try to not change who you are, but amplify the best parts of the parts of yourself you consider to be the best. Fuck was that? But yeah, it just, you're not gonna get a situation like with Tate that goes well 100% of the time. There's always going to be somebody who's some fucking dude. There's always going to be some people who just don't like what you're saying and will do anything they can to undermine the actual message that you're trying to put out, because what they see is what they think your message is, which is just stupid to me. Like, Tate wouldn't have gotten as popular as he was if he was just outright misogynistic. If he was just outright, men are worse than women, there's no reason for women to exist. If men could have more men without the need of women. Women should just disappear. Never, ever once has he ever said that. And it's always a situation where he's talking about, like most people in the self-improvement situation, the dynamic switches when a man hits a certain level of influence. When you hit, like, you know, you have enough money, good enough looks, and a decent enough lifestyle, you become the one who chooses. Because at any lower level, women are the ones who choose. And that switches. And what Andrew Tate and a lot of other people are advertising is that you need to work really, really fucking hard to make that switch happen. Because otherwise you don't get to act like Tate. And that brings me to where this is really going bad, and where a lot of people are actually being introduced to Tate. There are a lot of stupid teenage boys who are trying to emulate Andrew Tate. And I don't know about you, but I've never met a 11 to 16-year-old boy who was anywhere close to a top level male. It just doesn't happen. You have so much of your life that you need to get in order before you can ever start to act like Tate. Like some 11-year-old, there was a news story of a teacher who has had to deal with a bunch of kids who are trying to emulate Tate. And some 11-year-old was like just outright insulting this girl. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you're gonna call her fat and ugly, but you're skinny and look like shit, and you dress like shit, and you smell like shit, and you make no money because you're an 11-year-old. You don't get to act like that. You're not at that level. That's the part of Andrew Tate and a lot of other people's message that people who are watching just don't seem to understand. Because there's this section of people that hate whoever it is. And there's the section of people that watch their content, understand what's going on, and then move about their day trying to get to that point. And then there's this section of people on the far opposite side who are so engrossed in the content that they actively think they can be that person. It's like the message is not be me. The message is work really fucking hard because you're nowhere near my level. For Tate, anyway, specifically. And then you have this little group of people who are like, oh, I don't need to impress women. Women will come to me. And it's like, you're not Andrew Tate. You're not a championship kickboxer. You don't live in Romania with 27 supercars. You don't own a mansion. You don't make millions per month. You're not Andrew Tate. You're an 11-year-old kid sitting in fucking middle school. Stop acting like you're a top G, which is basically what he calls like high-level men. And it's stupid to me that people can think that when watching Andrew Tate, that they can be Andrew Tate at their level. And it's like, that is the exact opposite of what he's saying. He's saying you're nowhere near my level. You need to work harder. And I understand the idea of thinking you'll get there eventually. I understand the idea of setting goals to get there eventually. But you don't get to act like you're already there. When I will go through my day-to-day life, I act extremely humble. Because I know right now, I'm not there. But I hope to be. I try to be. And I will try to get there. But I'm not going to act like I'm there until I'm fucking there. So, yeah, some people have zero fucking patience. Couldn't even let me finish my sentence. Okay. God, that immediately followed a sentence where I was just talking about how humble I am. That's hilarious. Listen, I'm pretty humble. I don't have patience for people doing that shit. Where they just actively think their time is more important than yours. That shit doesn't fly with me. Completely unrelated note. Completely unrelated thing. But when people are just like stop whatever you're doing, because I don't give a fuck about you, and come do the thing that I need you to do. That's a child's mindset. I'm gonna make a video about that next. Stay tuned.